and Dujanovic. A new conversation.
All right, here we go.
On KSL News Radio 102.7 FM and 1160 AM. Utah's top local story. Special coverage with Dave and Dujanovic.
Well, it is the shooting at the McDonald's drive-thru in Midvale. Right there, right off of I-15. You pass it all the time on the east side of I-15. It happened yesterday. Police say a dad got upset at his order at the drive-thru, pulled out a gun, and then what happened next is unreal because it involved a 4-year-old. But before we get to our conversation with Sheriff Rosie Rivera about it, Mark Juke stepping in studio with breaking news right now.
Yeah, Deborah, we're just getting details now, at least some confirmation, early confirmation from Unified Police. They're responding to the report of a Black Hawk helicopter down in the Mineral Basin area. They've got the crews on the way to the area. They don't have any more confirmation, but they're responding to that report of the scene. The only other thing we know is the Mineral Basin lift is closed, and resources are being dispatched to that area.
Mineral Basin being up in the Snowbird area?
Yeah, kind of the backside of the Snowbird area.
A Black Hawk helicopter. That's a military helicopter.
And yes, it is. And it's a report right now. So they have not any confirmation other than they are responding to that report.
Okay.
And we hope to get, obviously, it will continue to work to get new details as soon as they come in.
Mark Juke, thank you.
Well, let's get the sheriff on the line right now. Ask about that as well as the situation at the McDonald's drive-thru, Dave, which involved this 4-year-old.
Yeah, this story is so disturbing on so many levels. Number one, the overreaction, the father that is angry for whatever reason in the drive-thru, but this idea that a 4-year-old has a gun and had access to a gun. It's just so mind-boggling and so terrifying that I don't know how this happened.
Well, so the arrest record, good morning, Sheriff. I want to bring you into the conversation because I was reading the arrest record when officers booked this individual in, said the officer managed to swap the gun with his hand as this 4-year-old was pointing it out the window. A round goes off, and it hits the upper part of the McDonald's building. I mean, how fortunate that none of the officers or any of the customers or the workers at McDonald's got shot.
Yeah, we were very fortunate yesterday. The officer did receive some burns from when that round went off. That's how close he was to that firearm. But we're just so fortunate that nobody was hurt, and the officers recognized that it was a child in the car and didn't shoot back.
Yes, Sheriff, can you just walk us through what the description is as the officer is approaching? How did this happen? Because it must have happened just in the blink of an eye, but can you walk us through exactly what happened?
Yeah, it did happen in a blink of an eye. And really, our officer that deflected that gun was just a split second away from assisting the other officers when he noticed the gun. And that was such a split second action on his part to deflect that firearm. But the other officers were down on the ground trying to take the father into custody. But I truly believe that firearm would have taken a life yesterday had the officer not been able to do that so quickly.
I want to just make sure our listeners recognize that the suspect in all of this has made statements to police, and he said that he blacked out and that he did not remember brandishing the gun or racking a round at the McDonald's employee. And then the driver did admit that this was not the first time that his son had gotten a hold of his gun. What are your thoughts on that, Sheriff Rivera?
Just frustration. We have talked to our communities over and over on gun safety, especially with children. But what I can tell you is the fact that 4-year-old boy knew how to pick up a firearm and shoot it and point it at people. This tells me that the father has taught him that because kids just don't know those kind of things unless they're taught.
4 years old is so young. Let me just think. The officers had removed the father from the vehicle. It sounds like. Where was the child? In a car seat? In shotgun? Where was the child? And was the window down or the door open when the officer realized that this child, this 4-year-old, had a gun in his hand?
Yeah, both of the kids were in the back seat, and the window was down on the vehicle, but the door was also open because the officers had taken the father out of the vehicle. So the officer was able to see that firearm and just take action.
Was the gun pointed at the officer, or where was the gun pointed?
I don't know for sure. If it was pointed at the group of officers and the father, or I just don't know at this time. That's for down the road investigation to see where exactly it was pointed at. But we do know he had it pointed out of the vehicle.
Do you know if the dad had in any ways egged this child, his son on?
Well, we do have a witness that said they did hear him tell him to shoot. So, yes.
Wow.
Just chilling.
It's unbelievable. How, no time in my whole career have I ever seen anything like this. And I just think people over getting an order wrong at a fast food place. That's where people need to treat people better, have some patience. I'm sure the intent of those employees was not to give a wrong order. They were making it right, and he just chose this route. Now, the father's away from the child. The child's, with DCFS. Tragic story. And at the same time, heroic because the UPD officer took quick action.
You posted something on social media last night that caught our attention. You said, we need to come together as a community to address challenges we face in our neighborhoods. You called for more kindness, patience, and compassion for each other, that it goes a long way. Can you expand on that?
And it does. Yeah, well, what we're seeing nowadays is people lose their temper too quickly. They don't have respect for each other, and that's all we're asking is have a little bit of patience, kindness, put yourself in others' shoes, and have that compassion for people. We see these type of things quite often in our profession, so the community doesn't see it quite like we do, but it's occurring more and more where people lose their temper for small things that could be so easily managed. And that's all my intent was to say, let's come together as a community and try to treat each other better.
Well, Sheriff, your post gave me food for thought, although I've never had a similar incident at a McDonald's drive-thru where, this individual is accused of doing the unthinkable and allegedly pulling a gun on employees for getting a order wrong. I know there's plenty of times where we've all been frustrated over things that if we just gave it a moment, we would cool down and we would think twice about it ever again. So, Sheriff, before we let you go, we just had breaking news reported by Mark Juke in our newsroom. He came in to tell us that there was reports of a Black Hawk helicopter crashing in Little Cottonwood Canyon. I don't mean to catch you off guard, but do you have any updated information on that at this point for our listeners?
The only information I currently have is that we do have our UPD Canyon officers en route there with that same information. So they will confirm whether or not it is true, and we'll have more information as soon as we can get it to the public.
Sheriff Rosie Rivera, thanks for joining us.
I did really appreciate her post last night about compassion, patience. I wondered if we could just all look in the mirror for a moment. Right? You're like, no.
You're being very kind. You're being very, very kind and thinking the best, because I look at this and I think somebody had a loaded gun in their vehicle,
right,
had a bad order at McDonald's, somehow egged on a 4-year-old child to shoot a gun.
I think this is the first time someone's freaked out at the people at McDonald's.
Well, as you heard from Sheriff Rivera,
that's a huge.
To this degree, I've never seen it. I never heard of it. Right. Sheriff Rivera, if she in her 28 years has never heard of something.
So then you tell me what we want our listeners to call in and straight ahead.
I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, I'll put you on the spot. What do we want to talk about? Because we got to talk this through, right?
Yeah.
But I want to hear from our listeners. Because Dave, there are so many times where people have gotten so frustrated at me on I-15 that I'm afraid.
Oh, yeah.
Or I've gotten
Absolutely.
so frustrated at somebody else that I'm afraid that I'm going to lose my temper on them. Like I'm gritting my teeth afraid. Now, I'm not excusing at all what happened yesterday at the McDonald's drive-thru. It's horrible. And if it's your child working that drive-thru window or you're working that drive-thru window and you think you're going to lose your life because you got the order for French fries wrong, it's horrible. But I think she brings up an excellent point. We are all on the verge of having a total meltdown at any time, like I'm about to now on you. 801-575-TALK. 801-575-TALK. Call us straight ahead. Let's talk it out.
Dave and Dujanovic.
Here's some exciting news. Dave and Dujanovic are now with you all the way to noon.
This is Tim and Amanda. Listen for breaking news from 5 to 9.
And then discussion of the news with Dave and Debbie from 9 to noon.
On KSL News Radio.
Dave and Dujanovic.
We have a developing story that we're following. We just heard from Sheriff Rosie Rivera about 4 or 5 minutes ago regarding a Black Hawk helicopter. KSL News Radio's Mark Juke ran into studio just before the sheriff was on the line with us to tell us that there were reports of a Black Hawk helicopter that's gone down in the Mineral Basin area, which I understand is on the backside, if I'm remembering correctly, Dave. You've researched it. Backside of Snowbird.
Yeah, I'm
Resort.
looking into it. I don't know Snowbird very well. It's not one of the places I ski very often, but Mineral Basin, it seems to me, and help us if you've skied that area, go ahead and text us at 57500. It seems to be kind of the backcountry skiing on the south side. I think you can even access it by the tram. It'll take you to the top and then maybe ski down the backside. But
so the sheriff had just told us that she does have officers from Unified Police Department, the Canyon Patrol officers, on their way to the area to check out those reports. I was just in the newsroom a moment ago, and we are also following that story very closely. Of course, the minute we know more information, our listeners are always the first to know. We want to continue our discussion. Dave and I were having a fiery discussion about the situation at the McDonald's drive-thru, where this dad allegedly gets upset at his order at the drive-thru in Midvale yesterday afternoon and pulls a gun. Because the worker mixes up his order. That's why the sheriff originally was calling us, is to give us an update on that. And she also talked about, as a community, we're all sort of on the verge anymore. We need to have more compassion. We need to have more patience. We need to have more understanding, and just kind of take a moment and take a breath.
I would like to think it is just that simple. This is so evil, what happened and how it came about, to involve a 4-year-old, to tell the 4-year-old to shoot. That's what one witness said. It just seems so evil, so awful, that I can't really understand it. Again, think about a 4-year-old that you know. The idea that 4-year-old would even understand the concept of holding a gun, pointing it, aiming it, putting a finger on the trigger. How would they possibly know how to do that? And I know we want to show compassion, but so often you look at something like this, and it is so insane, so crazy, that it just feels evil.
Here's what the sheriff kind of ended on in our discussion.
What we're seeing nowadays is people lose their temper too quickly. They don't have respect for each other, and that's all we're asking is have a little bit of patience, kindness, put yourself in other shoes, and have that compassion for people. We see these type of things quite often in our profession, so the community doesn't see it quite like we do, but it's occurring more and more where people lose their temper for small things that could be so easily managed.
We need to step away from this discussion. Mark Juke has an update on our situation in the Mineral Basin area.
Yeah, we're understanding now from Unified Police there are possibly 2 Black Hawk helicopters involved in this crash in the Mineral Basin area near Snowbird. And we also just got sent a photo, and we have no way right now of verifying the photo or necessarily its origin, but it does show a Black Hawk helicopter on the ground on a ski run. It's not upside down or anything like that, but it obviously so it's intact. It's on a ski run there in the snow. We're trying to confirm again kind of where that photo came from, but that came in response to a tweet by Unified Police. They're investigating the report of 2 Black Hawk helicopters involved in this crash. Of course, we have a reporter en route to the scene, and we'll bring you all the latest details.
Do we know at all what the conditions were up in that area this morning? I know they've received some snow, I believe, yesterday and probably this morning as well, but what's the visibility like? Do we have any information at all, Mark?
Well, again, and we can't, without the validity of this photo, but judging by that photo, the skies are clear up there right now. It's sunny and bright, and in fact, there were skiers surrounding this one helicopter that we saw in that photo. And again, we're working to try to get more information on that.
Black Hawk helicopters are very, very large.
Yes.
I think they're about 65 feet, 4 propellers. These are very large helicopters. And the idea that there's, a couple of them, but the photo that you have is only of one.
Right, and I'm trying to picture a Black Hawk helicopter. It's large, but I can't picture the 4 propellers. Oh yeah, okay, I see what you're saying. The 4 blades on the one rotor. Yeah, so it is a large helicopter, and it's just the one. And it, obviously the photo that we saw was a little bit hazy, but it showed the motor stopped. It was hard to determine the extent of any kind of damage to that helicopter itself,
or injuries.
Or injuries, we just don't know. But there were people standing outside around the helicopter as if, possibly the people in that helicopter were out already, because there was no effort, if that photo was valid, to, around that helicopter.
Mark Duke joining us from the newsroom right now. You were out in the newsroom as the story was developing. You ran in and broke this story about 15 minutes ago or more now. And just happened to be that we had Sheriff Rosie Rivera, who oversees Unified Police Department, on the line with us to talk about the situation at the McDonald's drive-thru yesterday, where the 4-year-old allegedly got a hold of Dad's gun and pointed it out the window of the car. But we did ask her. I asked her about these reports of Black Hawk chopper down in the Mineral Basin area at the Snowbird, Little Cottonwood Canyon area, and here's what she told us.
The only information I currently have is that we do have our UPD Canyon officers en route there with that same information. So they will confirm whether or not it is true, and we'll have more information as soon as we can get it to the public.
And this is a helicopter that you will often see. There's a lot of training exercises that go on. You will see a Black Hawk helicopter flying around the state. Again, the Black Hawk is used for a number of things, but it will transport soldiers from place to place. It's like I said, it's large. It can transport people, equipment. It's very powerful. So to be up in the mountains that high, obviously, I can't imagine what happened, and we'll continue to follow this because we're getting information. People obviously are in that area. Skiers are in that area. This should start pouring out anytime.
Yeah, and I'm also getting word that a public information officer who will address the press is on their way to that area, up to the Snowbird area. So, Dave, it's likely that you and I could be taking our listeners there live within the next 30 minutes or so to get the latest as officers arrive on the scene there, and we delve into more details here as we collect more information. If you're just tuning into the show, about 30 minutes ago, that's not accurate, it's probably 25 minutes ago, Mark Duke in the newsroom ran in studio and said, we've got breaking news. We have one Black Hawk helicopter reportedly that is down. Didn't know quite, frankly, if it was a crash or if it was just like an emergency landing in the Mineral Basin area, which is in the Little Cottonwood Canyon area. For those of you who know Alta and Snowbird, that's the area that we're looking at right now. And then in the last few minutes or so, that has been updated. Now we believe we have 2 Black Hawk helicopters down in that area, although these reports are coming at us at a mile a minute, and we're trying to decipher if that's indeed the case.
We'll continue to follow this as this story continues to break.
Straight ahead, we've got the continued fight on the food tax and repealing it. Now there's a push to get a constitutional amendment to repeal it. We're going to have that discussion in 4 minutes.
You can help an old lady get across the street, save somebody from choking when they're out to eat. But there's one thing that'll help you the most. It's giving blood while you relax and read the Morning Post. Good karma by the pint. Give blood. Donate blood and then you just might save 3 people's lives and get a season's worth of good vibes.
Visit New York Blood Center to get your good karma by the pint.